Talent agent Theolani DeGuire is suing the owner of a Polynesian dance company, 28-year-old Lauren Michaels, for non-payment of services rendered.
Miss Michaels, what kind of work do you do?
I have a Polynesian entertainment company.
And your company provides Polynesian entertainment for whom?
For clients, shows.
What kind of show did you hire people for that is involved in this case?
A car show.
Had you dealt with Miss DeGuire before?
No, I haven't.
How did you find her?
I went on the internet. I was in a position where I needed one more act, and it was like the night before.
So you needed another act for the car show. You found her ad on the internet.
Actually, no. I found someone else's ad, and they said, we don't do any last-minute gigs like this, and here's her number.
Fine. This is what the situation is. You contacted her, and she was to provide you with 2 or 3 young women who were going to dance at this car show. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And the agreed-upon fee was $300.
That's correct.
So far? That's correct. Hold up.
3 girls.
Okay. These are 2 of the 3 girls?
Yes, it is.
And they performed?
Yes, they did.
Miss Michaels, according to your complaint, gave the girls $200.
Yes, she gave them $200.
Check for $200. And then she put a stop payment on that check.
Yes, she did.
Now, Miss Michaels, you're going to tell me why you put a stop payment on that check.
Okay. There was a lot of broken agreements. They were supposed to meet me at 4:30. They showed up 3.5 hours late. 5 minutes before the show time.
Yes.
They said they're going to let me choose between 2 to 3 costumes. And I didn't have that opportunity. They're still cutting
So why don't you send them home when they got there 5 minutes before the event?
Because I wanted to fulfill my commitment.
So if you wanted to fulfill your commitment, then you let them perform, right? That's why you didn't send them home. What I'm asking you is why you stopped payment on the check. And I haven't heard anything yet.
Because when I saw the videotape afterwards of what was promised for a professional show, because I have act number 1, which is my group, which is a professional act, and what was promised for a professional show and matching costumes and all of that, I'm backstage with my girls. They're going on.
So what you're telling me is you weren't satisfied with the performance?
Not at all.
Good. Listen to me very carefully, madam. I want you to think about you taking several of your clients into a restaurant, and you have a reservation for 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock comes and goes, and they don't seat you. They say, we're not going to be able to seat you until 9 o'clock. Look at me. So you decide to wait. You don't say to your friends, we're going to go to a different restaurant. You decide to wait. And you wait till 9 o'clock, and then you sat down to eat. And you eat, and you really don't like the food. You finish whatever you finish. You have dessert, you have coffee, bill comes, you pay it. And then you call your credit card company and say, I want to stop payment on this check because I didn't like my dinner. You think that's reasonable? If you waited until the last minute to book another act and you needed another act, I'm speaking.
Okay.
And these people show up and they hadn't fulfilled, according to you, their agreement, then you say to them, ladies, go home.
Yes.
I'm not going to potentially embarrass myself by putting on an unknown. What you can't do, Miss Michaels, is put the act on and then say, I didn't like them, and I'm not going to pay you.
I never said that I wasn't going to pay them.
Of course you did. You stopped payment on the check.
I stopped payment. We spoke, and I said, whatever out-of-pocket expense that you had to pay the girls, I will give that to you, and that wasn't satisfactory to her.
It's not satisfactory. You had an agreed price. The agreed price was $300. Your choice was, when they were late, to send them home. Because it wasn't just that they were late. If they were late and wonderful, you wouldn't have had a problem. But you didn't know these people. You didn't know whether they could dance. You didn't know whether they could sing. You didn't know whether they had nice costumes. Yeah, you didn't know anything about them.
I made a poor judgment.
You did.
Yes.
And that's what business is all about. You make a poor judgment and you learn from your mistakes. You try to book an act at the last minute and you get people. Where are you from?
Moreno Valley.
You're not from Hawaii, are you?
No.
You're not from French Polynesia, are you? And where are you from?
Corona.
Corona. That's not in Polynesia, is it?
No.
She's Hawaiian.
Shh. I don't care whether she's Hawaiian or Yiddish. She's not French Polynesian. You had a contract. If she is not fulfilling the contract by arriving at an appropriate time and giving you an opportunity to screen the talent, send them home. You can't use them and then decide you didn't like the meal. Do I make myself clear?
They took
Judgment for the plaintiff in the
$200.
amount of $300. That's all.
She may step out.
Tina Corville is suing her estranged daughter-in-law, Jennifer Corville, for an unpaid loan and car insurance payments. Jennifer says Tina's son is a deadbeat.
This is the son?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is your soon-to-be ex-daughter-in-law. It is your claim that while she and your son were living in your home, you made a series of loans to her.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Corville says that you made gifts to her because she was the only one working in her family. Your son wasn't working, so she did some car payments made in order to get her back and forth to work, and some insurance payments made on the car. I have a few questions.
Yes, Your Honor.
How old are you?
25.
What do you do for a living?
I'm unemployed at the moment.
How long have you been unemployed?
For not that long, because I had a job January 1st whenever I had put her out.
Listen to me. Listen to me. How long have you been unemployed?
Since January 1st.
Of 2007?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to January 1st, 2007, your mother says that you weren't working a good part of the time.
ma'am.
That's what your mother says.
Yes,
Is she
ma'am,
lying?
That's true. No, ma'am, that's true.
How long did you have the January job?
Not long, because I didn't even
Just
go
don't
off-
tell me because.
No, ma'am, I hadn't gone offshore. It was an offshore job, and I didn't have a ride to go offshore. That's why I didn't have that job. I hadn't
So
even
you
worked
didn't
one
have
day.
a job?
I had the job. I got hired.
When was the
took-
last time that you got a paycheck, Mr.
I
Corville?
didn't get a paycheck from them because I never worked one day
Mr.
because
Corville,
I
I
didn't have a
want you to
ride.
listen to, put on your listening ear, sir.
Okay.
When was the last time, month and year, that you had a paycheck? Think hard.
2006, and I can't give you the exact month.
Well, give me close to the
Okay.
exact month.
About the 10th month, or maybe even the 9th.
What would that be, the 9th month?
The 9th month
Yeah.
is September. Took me a while.
Good. September. Now, in August, who did you work for?
Pizza Hut,
Doing what?
delivery driver.
How long did that last?
Not long,
Why?
because I was told I couldn't use the car to do it no more. I was putting wear and tear on our car.
Your Honor, that was our car at the time. I was a manager at Pizza Hut.
Listen, you know what kind of sympathy I have for you? Zero. You picked him. And not only did you pick him, but you picked him, and you have a child.
Not with me.
I know that.
Okay. I was just clarifying it.
You know, put your hand down. Sometimes it's better to be alone. Sometimes the loneliest you can be is when you're with somebody.
Yep.
Your son, who is without a job, moves in with you with his wife and her child.
Yes, ma'am.
How old was he when he left home?
He's been in and out of home since he's 12 years old.
In and out of your home.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, how did you feel about it when he told you he was getting married?
Didn't know the girl long enough.
But she has a job, right?
Yeah, at the time she did have a job, yes, ma'am.
Now, your son had no job at the time.
At the time?
At the time?
At the time he did have a job.
Doing what?
He did sheet metal.
What happened to that job?
He had differences with the guy.
Yeah, the guy fired me because I asked for a raise.
And what did he say when you asked him for a raise?
He told me he didn't feel that I deserved it, and if I felt like I really needed it, I could go look for a job elsewhere because I no longer had one with him.
No, that's not what he said.
Yes,
He
ma'am.
said, I don't feel as if you deserve it. If you feel as if you deserve more, go elsewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, he didn't say that you can't have a job with him. He said, go elsewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you went, where'd you go?
To Pizza Hut.
Was that paying more than your sheet metal job?
Yes, ma'am.
Nah.
With the tips, yes,
No.
ma'am. Okay.
Now, tell me about this first loan. After they got married, they moved in with you because he's not working, right?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Were they paying rent in your house?
Not at the beginning, no.
Were they paying rent later?
When the second go around, they were going to pay rent. They moved in twice last year.
Fine. Well, the second time they moved in, did they pay rent?
1 month,
How much?
150.
And who paid the rent?
My son,
What was he doing?
he was working for
Trim.
Newcom.
Yeah.
What happened to that job?
We had went and we had a court date for me and her both to attend to, and we asked the
What kind of court
instructor-
date?
I don't really remember, to be honest with you.
You had a court date and you don't remember?
Yes,
What kind of
ma'am.
court date did you have?
It was actually court for his paternity test.
Yeah.
It wasn't nothing to do with me.
But
For a
we
paternity,
left.
quiet. For a paternity test for what?
His second child.
He has children?
Yes, ma'am.
Wunderbar.
He has two, one for two different women.
Now, how much money in total did you give Miss Corville?
$958.
Tell me what it was for.
In January
January of what?
of 2006, she bought a car with her income tax. Didn't have money for the insurance, so I loaned her $200.
Just a second. Tell me about what she didn't have money for the insurance, and she said to you,
She would pay me back.
Did you have that discussion with her or with your son?
With her.
Tell me about the discussion.
She said that she would help us, give us the money because of the fact he was out of work, and she didn't want to see us without a car because if we didn't have a car, we were unable to work.
Was he
And as she
working?
said-
Was he working at the time?
No, ma'am.
Did you subsequently get a job, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you did. Good. Where did you get a job?
That's whenever I went to the electrical company.
And how did you get to the electrical company?
She had brought me a few occasions.
Who did?
Miss Jennifer.
Your wife?
Wife, yes, ma'am.
What's next?
In May, she called me at work crying because she had a payday loan that she had taken before they were married, crying because she was going to get arrested. Could she please borrow some money?
Is that right?
It is.
Good. How much was that?
305.
80.
That you owe her. Go ahead.
Then in September the 19th, their ABC insurance canceled. So they had to find new insurance.
They had to find new insurance.
She had to find new insurance.
Where were you working? You told me you were working in September, sir.
Yes, ma'am. That's whenever we were both working at Newcom.
Oh, okay, so you were both working.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were using her car to get there.
Yes, ma'am.
Ah, good. Perfect.
So I paid her down payment for $155.
That's
for
fine.
the Geico.
That ensures that your son is working.
She was short $100 because they both lost their jobs. She was short $100, so to keep her car, I put the $100 difference in pay that she would pay me back when she'd find another job.
Why'd you get him to pay you some money?
It wasn't his car.
He was using it. They were a married couple.
No,
listen. Miss Corville.
I had lost
your son
3
put her
jobs.
out of the house when?
January 1st, 2007. Why? Because
What was my question?
I couldn't use the car to go find a job, nothing. She had stopped letting me use the car, everything. That was her
Really?
car.
And you had been using the car to go and look for a job?
No, ma'am.
Well, you said
hadn't
she
let me.
stopped.
Yeah,
let you
like
use
she hadn't let me. And within 3 months since we had been back over there, I had got a job and went to Houma. That was the only time.
So that's why you threw her out?
Yes, ma'am, because I was supposed to be leaving to go offshore and she wouldn't bring me.
Go ahead.
He didn't get a job in Houma. He actually went to Houma to get a job. He failed his drug test, and he was unable to work offshore. So he actually didn't
What
work.
kind of drugs were you taking that you failed the drug test?
None.
You mean the test was a mistake?
No, ma'am, I was going offshore.
So you didn't fail the drug
No,
test?
ma'am.
Would you like to take one today?
Doesn't matter.
She owes you for the payday loan. That she owes you for. For the car, consider it a contribution to your son. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. Judge 30580. That's all. Thank you very much.
Gazina Jacobs is suing her former tenants, Benjamin Nelson and his girlfriend Vanessa Enghorn, for rent, utility bills, and for severely damaging her rental property.
Ms. Jacobs, you rented a unit that you had, apartment,
Yes.
to the defendants. They were referred to you by a neighbor. According to your complaint, you had to evict them. They owed you rent. You want your rent. You want the damage that they did to your apartment, which you say was substantial. Mr. Nelson and Ms. Eichhorn say you owe them money. You kept their security deposit. They did not cause any damage to the unit. They were current in their rent until you shut off their electricity and their power, and they have a counterclaim. What kind of work do you do, Mr. Nelson?
I'm a handyman, mechanic, painter. I do a lot of things.
Do you work for anybody or you work for yourself?
I work for myself.
And what do you do?
I'm a hostess.
It's just the two of you in the
Yes.
unit? And how much was the rent?
$960 a month, plus electric and gas.
Which you were supposed to pay for yourself.
Yes.
When did you move in?
I believe it was September of '06.
When did they move in?
They moved in at the end of January of '07, and the lease agreement started 1st of February of '07.
I don't think that's right. We
Can I
lived
see
there
the
longer
lease,
than that.
please?
I have the lease agreement.
Are you on any prescribed medication, Mr. Nelson?
No.
You moved in February of '07, sir, not in September of '06. Okay. So, first let's start with the question of utilities. According to your answer, you say she agreed to rent us the unit and we signed the lease for $960 a month, including utilities. Now you say you were supposed to pay your own utilities.
Electric and gas, yes.
You were supposed to pay your own utilities. Did you put them in your name?
Right before we got
Eventually
evicted.
we had to.
What do you mean eventually you had to? You had to when you moved in February.
Well, they were in her name up until then because it was part of the agreement that our utilities would be included in the $960 rent.
Not according to him.
According to this evidence in these papers, That's what it was. It was in her name for a long time.
Well, it was, of course. It had to be in somebody's name.
Yes, and until she got it, she turned it off without notice.
Just a second. Were you supposed to pay the utilities?
Yes.
Why didn't you put the utilities in your name starting in February?
Because that wasn't part of the agreement that we had.
Of course it was.
We didn't have the money at the time.
That may be an answer.
So we agreed to do it when we had the money.
Yeah. Just a second. When did you have the money?
I believe April or May.
By April, she had already turned off the utilities.
That's when we got it in our name.
Because you didn't pay them. When did you move out?
We moved out around the beginning of June, around June 10th.
June 9th was our last day.
So you owe her rent for February, March, April, May, and June. 5 months.
No,
that is not true.
We've paid her up until like the last 2 months before we moved out.
I'm telling you that's what you owe her.
Okay.
Show me that you paid 5 months' rent. If you didn't give her rent for 5 months, tell me when you stopped paying her rent.
I always brought her cash. I stopped paying her rent on about end of April. I stopped paying her rent because I didn't have the money because I lost my job.
All right, fine. So far, you owe her $1,150 in rent, and you didn't pay the utilities for February, March, and April. I assume that they paid them in May because then they had to put them in their own name. At least
yes,
you were off the hook. So how much do they owe you for utilities?
Utilities is, I got the receipts right here, $767.69.
Now, you have pictures of the damage to the apartment?
I sure do.
I'd like to take a look at it.
There's several sets of pictures. I also have a list from the repair person and the checks that I did pay a person to repair the $4,000 worth of damages.
How did these holes get in the wall?
That was a prior roommate.
Whose roommate?
Ours. A bad selection of a roommate.
Well, you owe her for this damage.
Yes, I believe we do. We're responsible because...
You are. It's your roommate. Go find your roommate.
I'm putting in a small claim right now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That master bedroom, I know it was their bedroom, and right below those holes was their mattress. So, yeah, you can see her head. There,
Your
right
Honor,
where he...
That is untrue. She's made a lot of allegations about us, about him doing bad things to hurt me, a lot of why reason why those holes are in our walls.
When was the last time the police were called to any residence where you have ever lived for domestic violence?
Never. Just this once. If she'd called.
Just a second. When in any of your residences were the police called on a complaint of domestic violence?
None that we know of.
She just said once.
Well,
no,
we believe that's what she called about.
Yeah,
because they showed up, but nothing was ever done about it because nothing was wrong.
They showed up at the residence because they were looking for him.
This apartment is a pigsty. Don't you clean?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we had a roommate that came in while we were at work and damaged a lot of
It's
stuff.
filthy. That doesn't happen from a messy roommate. That happens from people who live like pigs.
I don't live like a pig, Your Honor.
Well, you did. I never saw a place so filthy.
I had to go through my house in 2 days' time, and I had to pretty much tear everything apart that I had and find what was sentimental to me, pack it up, and then start throwing a lot of my things away.
Should have paid your rent.
Your Honor.
You should have paid your rent. That's what happens when you don't pay rent or utilities.
We'd agreed to start paying it off. We'd actually started paying it off. And
Listen, she's not your mother.
I know.
She's your landlord. The first thing that you did was you moved into the apartment. You were supposed to put the utilities in your name. You didn't. Then you have a counterclaim that she had no right to turn off the utilities because she got tired of paying $767 for your utilities. Well, then you had no choice, but you put them in your name. At least she's off the hook. I don't know whether you stiffed the utility company or not. I assume you did. Now, then you leave an apartment like a pigsty and you blame it on a roommate. Well, so far it's everybody's fault but yours. Everybody else is wrong. She's wrong.
I'm taking responsibility since it was my roommate.
We think it was your roommate, sir.
We've had...
I don't necessarily think it was your roommate. I don't believe necessarily it was your roommate just because you say it. Do you understand?
Oh, I understand.
Good. I'm glad you do. Okay, so far you owe her $19.17 just for your rent and the utilities.
And that's the detailed list of what was repaired.
Oh,
nothing was repaired, Your Honor, except for the holes in the walls because I live right next to that place, and so does my neighbor, and she happens to walk by and she sees our things are still being used. A refrigerator that she said was damaged that we need to pay for to replace, still being used. It was like that before we moved
That's a
in.
lie.
Show them these pictures, please.
The refrigerator was not repaired, and the refrigerator I'm not suing for. I'm just suing for the repairs Mr. Bean did on my rental unit.
Your Honor, I was going through all these items. That's why it looks like a pigsty like this.
Just take a look at the toilet. The toilet isn't going through the items. That toilet hasn't been cleaned, it looks like, in 6 months. You owe $5,000 for your cleanup, for your rent, and for your utilities. Now, give me 30 seconds or less on your counterclaim. Let's go!
We don't believe we owe her because nothing was fixed before we even moved in.
Forget it. Next.
All of our stuff that was in the house, she told us we would have 2 days, and we had
Why
nowhere to
didn't
go.
you get your stuff out?
We stayed up all night trying to get our stuff out.
We had
but
2
we had a
days
house
time
full of
to do
stuff,
it.
so we got out
Did you
what
pay
we
rent
could.
in June?
I was giving her a couple hundred every
Did you
week.
pay rent in June?
Not in full, no.
Counterclaim's dismissed. You owe $5,000. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Benjamin Graham says former friend and landlord Lark Bowman stole belongings from his home when he went to jail.
Mr. Graham, according to the complaint that I read, you rented an apartment from Miss Bowman.
Yes.
When did you rent the apartment from her?
The summer of 2004.
July or August?
I'm not sure of the date, Your Honor.
When did he rent the apartment, Miss Bowman?
In the fall time of 2004.
Do we have a month?
Yeah, it was in November, actually.
Does that sound right?
That sounds about right.
And then, according to you, Mr. Graham, you were incarcerated for a period of time, and you claim that Miss Bowman stole some of the property that was in your apartment when you were there. Miss Bowman says she did not do that. She says that your friend Gail, with whom you are currently living, who lives in the apartment complex, she took your property. She has no knowledge of your property. She did take a couple of things that she says she had loaned to you when you moved in. Those were bookshelves.
Correct.
And what else?
And a desk.
And a desk. Those are the two things that you indicate
I
here.
had many other things there that belonged to me, but I did not take them.
Bookshelves and a desk were the only two things that you removed from the apartment.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Graham, when were you incarcerated?
On the 22nd of May.
How long were you in jail?
40 days.
For what?
Drug paraphernalia possession.
What items do you claim that Ms. Bowman took from your apartment?
Couch, 2 couches, bedroom set, laptop computer, a variety of miscellaneous electrical items. I'm an electrician.
Like what?
Lights, ceiling fans, outlets.
You mean that weren't in the walls? That
Not
were
in the
just
walls.
there?
Yes, just there. Yeah.
So, tools of your trade. What else?
I had a variety of things that I had a list of, and unfortunately I didn't bring the list with me, but it was...
All right, Mr. Graham, what proof do you have that Miss Bowman, who denies that she took these things from your apartment, what proof do you have that she took them?
Well, besides the fact that my friend and neighbor was there when it was being taken, I also have some photos, Your Honor, that the neighbor who lived in the apartment across the driveway happened to take.
I'd like to see them.
Yes.
Who has a blue truck?
Nobody I know.
The truck is purple, Your Honor.
Purple truck.
My brother.
I'm going to ask you some questions. I better get a reasonable answer. Your last name is?
Bowman.
How old are you, sir?
I'm 39 years old.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a painter.
Of houses?
Houses. I do maintenance. My sister owns rental properties.
So you work for your sister?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you employed on an annual, or does she pay you periodically?
Periodically, hourly.
How long have you worked for your sister?
Here in the last 4 months.
Prior to that?
I worked as a forklift operator, supervisor.
You took your purple truck to Mr. Graham's house that he was renting, and you and your sister removed certain property. Is that correct?
My sister had called me at the end of May.
I have pictures. I just want you to know that I have pictures.
I
So let's
understand.
not play with each other.
Yes, ma'am.
I asked you a specific question. I said, did you go to the house and remove certain property that was in the house that Mr. Graham was renting?
The property that belonged to my sister.
The house that Mr. Graham was renting?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
What property did you remove, sir?
There was a desk.
You'll be very careful.
Computer
Desk.
Yeah.
Go
Shelf,
ahead.
Old lamp.
A lamp. What else?
There was a few boxes, miscellaneous boxes.
Boxes. Say nothing, Miss Bowman. Boxes. What about tables, sir? Did you remove any little tables?
At
Did
the
you
time,
remove any little tables, sir?
Not that I recall, I didn't. Gail was there with her truck too. In the process, I
I'm
was.
talking about a purple truck.
Yes,
That
Your
would be yours.
Yes, it would.
What color is your truck?
Brown.
Did you remove any upholstered pieces from the house, Mr. Bowman?
No,
You know
no.
what upholstered pieces are?
Rugs, upholstery.
I didn't say rugs. Rugs aren't upholstered pieces, sir. I'm talking upholstered pieces, usually chairs and sofas.
There was one sofa.
One sofa. Let's just get there. One sofa.
One sofa.
All right, so you removed a sofa. Now, there were some boxes. How many boxes were there, Mr. Bowman?
I would say 2 to 3.
And with your hands, show me how big the boxes were, sir.
I would say the boxes were that size.
What did you do with the boxes?
The boxes got thrown in the garbage along with the rest of the kitchen utensils, all the food that was spoiled and rotten,
Where did you throw them?
right there in the alley in the garbage.
I'm asking you about the things that you put in your truck, sir.
Yeah, them items, them boxes, all was garbage. We were cleaning the apartment out to rent it out to another tenant while Mr. Graham had been in jail.
What did you do with the sofa, sir?
The sofa went down to our uncle's house, who said that he was going to use the sofa, which was...
Just answer my questions. I asked you what you did with the sofa. Sofa you brought to your uncle's house. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
What did you do with the lamp?
The lamp was also with my uncle.
2 little end tables. Those go to your uncle's house, too, with the lamp?
Yes, Your Honor.
See how easy that was, Mr. Bowman?
Yes, ma'am.
Sit down. You got my drift.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I'm 10 paces ahead of you, Miss Bowman. Your brother has just indicated, marginally, that your uncle has been the recipient of largesse in a sofa, end tables, and a lamp that we know about. That is not a desk and bookshelves. We understand each other?
Yes, Your Honor.
These photographs don't show a laptop computer, fans, tools, and other stuff. But, Miss Bowman, you took more out of his house than the desk that you let him borrow and the bookshelves. You know how I know that? Because he told me so. You lied when you told me that the only thing you removed from the house was a desk and bookshelves.
I didn't stay the entire time, so I don't know
Listen
what
to
else
me.
was
You
there.
lied when you told me that the only thing you removed were desks and bookshelves. He works for you. He is your employee. Anything that he did is attributable to you. He is your agent.
Gail, when I went in, Gail said, I'm going to pack up all Benjamin's stuff. Whatever's left there, I would have to go out to the dump. We moved 2
Listen
couches
to
out
me
to the
very
dump.
carefully, madam. That could have been something that you told me. That you took.
I got pictures.
I'm speaking. That you took other items from the house, but you took them from the house because they were not being used. Your uncle would have put them to good use, so you took them because he was in jail and Gail told you to. You could have told me that. That's not what you told me. You told me that the only thing you removed from the house was a desk and bookshelves. And that, madam, was not true.
I didn't witness them taking anything else. I just asked about the shelf and the desk. And I've got pictures of Benjamin's car.
I'm going to explain something to you
Okay.
from my perspective.
Okay.
You're not telling the truth. Now, I could say that in many different ways. You see how dry-mouthed you get when you lie? When you lie, your mouth gets really, really dry, Miss Bowman. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all. Step out.
Mark Horner claims former tenant Jacob Scott damaged his truck tub cover. Jacob is countersuing for the return of his bed and mountain bike.
Mr. Horner, this sort of comes under the category of no good deed goes unpunished.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your wife?
Yes, ma'am.
And?
My daughter-in-law?
You and your wife befriended Mr. Scott. He had been a friend of your son's?
Correct.
And at some point, you allowed him to move into your home.
Yes.
Where's your family?
My parents live in Plainville, Massachusetts. I'm currently residing with them.
Was there any reason why you weren't residing with them when you moved in with the Horners?
When I graduated